you bought a crack house with a government loan or something, right? Is that close
I
there? Can you tell us about that? And what did you learn from that experience? Because that was an example of stepping out of your comfort zone, which I've also heard you share could be really powerful to do.
I bought a house. It wasn't on the It wasn't on the market as a crack house or anything. It was. I bought a house that was abandoned, and when you buy a house that's owned by a bank, they have these big metal doors that they put on, like they seal off the building over the windows and the doors. And when you buy it, and I don't think I really realized this when I had never bought a house and I had no idea what I was doing, and I actually didn't really have any money. I asked a client if I could borrow $3,000, and back then I made like no money, and I was like, I'll work for you for the whole year if you give me this. And all I had to put down
Wow.
was $3,888 for this government FHA loan that you're allowed to do like once in your life. And they take, as soon as you close, they take all the doors and windows off. So all of a sudden the building's just like open. There's no door. Like the doors didn't work. They didn't lock. And so I'm there by myself, you know, in a pretty heavy neighborhood in Chicago, near where I lived. And I went up there alone. I mean, this is stupid. I would not recommend someone do this. And there were a lot of people very addicted, to drugs living in there. Like a situation.
You saw people in there, Kathryn?
We're
You
in
saw
there.
people living
And
in there?
coming in through the
What?
side, there was a window grate that was loose, so people were coming in through a basement and just living
Wow.
there. And I'm like this young woman who has no clue what she's doing, and she's like, "Oh shit, what do I do? All these people are in here." I realized that they didn't even have electricity in the house. Usually, a house you rehab it, you don't have to do things like put electricity in it, you know. So
Yeah, yeah.
long story short, long story long, it was way more than what I could handle. I thought, but you have to handle it. So I didn't have the internet
Wow.
back then. So I bought a book at Home Depot and I read it. It was yellow and it was like homeowner's guide to whatever and rehabbing. And I just taught myself how to hang drywall, taught myself how to pour cement, taught myself how to tile. And it was all from this book. And so many mistakes. Like I still recently had to get new windows. This was like
First of all,
years ago.
if this wasn't already inspiring enough, I just wanna reiterate that there was no internet
No
really
internet.
then. Like, you know
So
what I'm trying to say? Because there's internet now where YouTube University exists,
yeah,
Kathryn. So people, but
okay,
like they still want to do something that's
like,
old. Yeah.
there was internet like that we emailed and stuff, but it wasn't like now where you like Google and YouTube and some guy shows you how to do it, like um so even recently I had to replace all the windows, but I back then had boxed them all in with wood, trying to make it look cool, cutting wood and creating these. But the guy who just did my windows was like, who the hell put these windows in? They boxed in every single window in the house. So we have to pull out
Mm,
huge. It's like, there's been a lot of, one time there was a small room that I wanted to make into a giant shower. So I poured cement and I tiled
yeah.
it. And a few days later, it fell into the basement. Like it had no support and it just fell into the basement. It's like, so there's a lot of like serious,
so
serious.
so this is what and this is no like so to go from the micro to the macro, like this is what prevents people from taking these leaps in life, whatever the leap is, right? When it's the unknown, they don't want to have the equivalent of the tile falling into the basement moment, right? With whatever it is they're going to do. How do you get people off that ledge, Kathryn?
I think you just need to remember that the leaps, even if it's a leap and it's a fail, unless you get like actually killed and taken out of the game, um, they're always going to pass. Like when that shower fell into the basement, and I have like $40 in the bank, and I'm like looking at like how in the hell am I going to fix this now? Like, at that moment, I'm like, everything is awful, and how am I ever going to get past this? But it always passes. Always. Everything passes. Even really intense, terrible things pass. There's half empty and there's half full people. I've always been half full, and so was my mom, even though we always had a lot of stuff happening that was very,
Mm.
trying. It was always like the half full. It's like, okay, well, that's terrible. Let's figure it out. It'll pass. Let's just figure, there's just no option to like shut down or just not deal with it. You just have to. And it goes away. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to remember that. It went away. It's fine.
What makes a lot of what makes for a lot of really incredible artists is they have some type of deep trauma, typically like Amy Winehouse, just referenced because that's on the extreme end, I think. Mac Miller, incredibly gifted, incredibly talented, had some dark energy too. What makes them great, that art great, it's coming from this, you know what I'm trying to say? It's like using that darkness, it's
Sure.
tapping into the darkness, Kathryn, right? Like you have to put your foot into that darkness in order to like bring it back out to the world. Does that make sense? So that becomes a very fine line. So how do you, I don't know, propose artists, creative people can like tap into that and like do it in a, I don't know, in a way that's safer or like more sustainable? Better
Well, I
word?
think most people tap into emotion very strongly when it's painful because it forces them to, so they're feeling their feelings, their feels, and when things feel peaceful, they're a little more detached from like real feeling or rawness in that way. So musically, a lot of artists tap into the pain, share it, and because other human beings experience that pain, they feel heard, and therefore the synapses all start to connect, and that is why they are the fan base is connecting, and people are talking about how raw and honest and truthful you are, and it's simply because they're able to tap into the human experience and share it.
And have the courage to share it though, Kathryn, because I think a lot of people in everyday life, when they're feeling that way, they tend to isolate and they tend to go in a corner or within. So now here's somebody coming out in the open, right? That's a big part of it too, I think. Yeah.
Well, the courage, and also it's the outlet. A lot of artists, and I know hundreds of them, who can really tap into that pain and share it with the world. If you speak to them about it, they aren't sharing it. That is the one way it comes out.
Oh, interesting. So in a private conversation, like they don't really like going there, but they'll go there in their art. Right, right, right.
And we pay attention to the struggling, hard, artists. There's also a lot of artists who are super well adjusted and very happy
Yeah.
and peaceful and are huge artists that are doing really well. Like one of the truest songs that ever could have been made was probably like Bobby McFerrin's "Don't Worry, Be Happy."
That's not put up there like in Nirvana's Nevermind, right? Is more talked about and celebrated in some ways. Like is like, oh, this is this iconic piece of art. But
We as viewers are drawn to the passion. Like Sinead O'Connor in her film about her life, she's talking about, my favorite song by her is the song Troy, and it's unbelievably powerful. And if you watch it, she is screaming, and it's guttural, and it's sweet, and it's just like, you know, and the whole song is about how her mother used to leave her in a garden and wouldn't let her in the house, and she had to sleep alone as a little girl outside, and her mom
wow.
would turn the light off, and she would just be stuck all night. She was abused. When you're performing and really up in being an artist is really brave. It is really vulnerable to share yourself and share yourself repeatedly, and then put yourself on this crazy schedule that disrupts all your natural like rhythms and circadian rhythms, and then
Yep.
comes drinking, drugs, sex, all the addictions, and pretty soon you are like way off you're not on your north star, you're off center and balance, and you still have this pain that is what's inspired it in the first place and made everyone love it, and then you keep moving through the machine, and the machine doesn't want to stop, and next thing you know, people are overdosing or killing themselves.